Hey, welcome to another episode of Strangely Brilliant, where I dig up books, films, and people that were innovative, but sadly overlooked or even forgotten. Today we're talking about the film Alternative 3 and its companion book. Now, conspiracy theories have been around forever, but in the past few years they've devolved from misguided but often really entertaining ideas about dead aliens and fake moon landings into harmful, often racist garbage. So we're going to look at how a fictional film and book grew into a full-on conspiracy theory with thousands of believers. So put on your tinfoil hats as we delve into the shadowy world of Alternative 3. And remember, it's all true, except for the lies. On June 20th, 1977, the Anglia television documentary series Science Report broadcast a documentary entitled Alternative 3, exploring the mysterious disappearances of some of Britain's greatest scientific minds.
It makes no sense. I mean, how can people just vanish off the face of the earth in this day and age?
But what they uncovered was a dark conspiracy that threatened the entire human race.
Apollo 12 Houston, try SCE to auxiliary, over.
Those later Apollos? There's a smoke screen. Stop you from asking questions about what the hell is really going on out there.
Lose communication.
Now, it could just be, that this unknown factor is a massive but covered operation in space. As for the reason behind it, well, we're not in the business of speculation.
Scientists began to suspect that the balance of the Earth's ecology was far more delicately poised than they'd yet realized. By the late 60s, the Earth was already so trapped within an envelope of its own pollution that heat from the sun and the Earth's industrial processes was having increasing difficulty in escaping. As the atmosphere became more dense, extreme variations of temperature were experienced, from intense heat to equally unprecedented cold. But the most frightening discovery which scientists made was that last year's unmelted snow line is the next step to a future and unavoidable ice age.
Alternative 3 was an attempt to ensure that at least some of the human race survived the consequences. But we realized we were talking about a kind of space travel which had only appeared in scientific fiction so far.
What, you mean go to some other planet?
I mean, get the hell off this one whilst there's still time.
So what was Alternative 3? The one-hour film proposed that man-made climate change would soon render the world uninhabitable. The United States and Soviet Union had teamed up in a secret, highly advanced space program and were kidnapping scientists and engineers to build a secret colony on Mars. Once completed, the world's elite would be transported there to live lives of luxury, sentencing the rest of us to extinction on a dying Earth. Within minutes of Alternative 3's broadcast, the switchboard at Anglia Television was flooded with calls from terrified viewers, all convinced they'd seen a genuine documentary. What they'd really seen was one of the original mockumentaries, a format that's become so common today that the word mockumentary has been added to the dictionary. Alternative 3 was the brainchild of young filmmakers Christopher Miles and David Ambrose. The two worked together, crafting a story inspired by the first NASA photographs of Mars. Their screenplay was a Whitman sampler of conspiracies, including NASA being a fraud, man-made climate change bringing on our extinction, an Illuminati secretly controlling the world's government, MK-Ultra-style LSD dosing of witnesses, plus a myriad of black ops and media control.
If you're wondering what this sort of story, important and even tragic though it may be, has to do with science...
Casting respected news anchor and Minister of Parliament Tim Brinton as the on-screen host cemented the show's air of authenticity. Alternative 3 was originally intended as Anglia Television's April Fool's Day prank. But the broadcast was delayed for months, further muddying the waters between documentary and fiction.
Okay, I'm ready.
But there were still a few breadcrumbs that should have tipped off frightened viewers. First clue being that the entire cast of actors was credited at the end of the show. Secondly, it wasn't the final episode of Science Report because the series never existed, though director Christopher Miles perfectly captured the dry style of such programs. The UK media went wild, alternately praising and damning the creators of this fictional program. But there was still a small group of citizens that refused to believe it was fiction, and the series of events that followed only seemed to confirm their suspicions. First off, Anglia Television elected never to rebroadcast the show. Then, American broadcasters refused to air it. To believers, these events screamed government cover-up. In truth, American broadcasters couldn't air the show due to the FCC's War of the Worlds regulation, forbidding the broadcast of any fictional program that presented itself as factual. Then a rumor began to circulate that all copies of Alternative 3 had been destroyed in a mysterious fire. Director Christopher Miles assured me that there was always a videotape copy in Anglia's vaults, as well as a 16mm print in his own collection. But for conspiracy buffs, the idea of a mysterious fire was like waving bacon in front of a dog. The conspiracy seed was planted, but it was the next action that really helped it take root. Anglia Television authorized a book to be published based on the program. Its author, Leslie Watkins, had previously written a few allegedly true paranormal books and knew his way around the subject. In what can only be described as a fictional, non-fiction book, Watkins embellishes the concepts of the documentary, even taking the revelations shared by the film's fictional astronaut, Bob Groden, and attributing them directly to Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong. The book was like manna from heaven for conspiracy lovers, combining meticulously researched dates, events, quotes, and even transcriptions of classified conversations while leaping from topic to topic like a teenager on Adderall. The fact that absolutely none of these names, places, or events stands up under even minimal research isn't a problem. To conspiracy lovers, that's just evidence of a grand cover-up. Back in the pre-internet age, the only way to see Alternative 3 was to buy an 8th-generation VHS tape from some shady black market vendor. Likewise, once the book went out of print, your only hope of finding it was to root around in dusty used bookstores. But that scarcity only added to Alternative 3's mystique, convincing true believers that it was somehow being suppressed by dark forces. For years, Alternative 3 floated in the conspiracy world's whisper stream until it was unearthed by author Jim Keith for his 1994 book, Mind Control and UFOs, Casebook on Alternative 3. Keith was a prolific author of conspiracy books with a genuine knack for writing tasty prose, so all of his books were far-fetched but very entertaining. In Casebook, he created a paranoid patchwork quilt that included Nazi UFOs, the Illuminati, the Kennedy assassination, and even Aleister Crowley. It's a wild ride. Keith's book sparked an Alternative 3 renaissance. Dozens of books and hundreds of websites unleashed a flood of conspiracy theories about secret space programs, gray aliens, time travel, and even Atlantis, most citing the documentary film as their inspiration. Many of the quotes and facts used to support these theories are plucked straight from Leslie Watkins' book, which was, of course, fiction to begin with. Some websites even claim that the film's final Martian landing footage is authentic, and that the CIA secretly financed Alternative 3 as disinformation. Conspiracy author and lecturer Olav Phillips went as far as to crown Alternative 3 the most dangerous film ever made.
Boy, if they ever take the rap off this thing, it's going to be the biggest date in history. 22nd May, 1962.
And thanks to the internet, many of these wild theories are getting far more exposure than they should.
We actually believe that there is a colony on Mars that is populated by children who were kidnapped and sent into space on a 20-year ride. So that once they get to Mars, they have no alternative but to be slaves on the Mars colony.
Yeah, you knew Alex Jones was going to pop up eventually. The guy's like a cold sore. The face of television has changed since Alternative 3's broadcast. Today, cable networks run documentaries about aliens, Bigfoot, and even Nazi UFOs without offering any voice of reason opinions. Meanwhile, politicians peddle lies and call them alternative facts, making it harder and harder for the public to separate fact from fiction. But don't worry, it's not like we're living in a world where the president denies earth-shattering climate change or seems to be secretly conspiring with Russia. That's just the stuff of fiction.
Gene, I want you to know that we're going to be back on the moon very soon, and someday soon we will plant the American flag on Mars. It's happening, Gene. It's happening.
Or maybe we've already been there. No, I'm kidding, we haven't. Anyway, let's go out on some fast, fun Alternative 3 trivia. The title Alternative 3 is actually an inside joke, because according to the dictionary, there cannot be an Alternative 3. But if you want to argue with Samuel Johnson, that's your business. The film's innovative director, Christopher Miles, must have talent embedded in his DNA, because his sister is the award-winning actress Sarah Miles. Alternative 3 screenwriter and novelist David Ambrose also wrote the terrific time travel, alternate history film, The Final Countdown. Alternative 3's chilling electronic score is an early work by Roxy Music keyboardist and electronica composer Brian Eno. Conspiracy book author Jim Keith died in 1999 from injuries he sustained falling off a stage at Burning Man, though conspiracy buffs insist he was murdered by dark forces intent on silencing him.
Drink. You want a drink?
And finally, the film's alcoholic astronaut was played by Shane Rimmer, who's fondly remembered as the voice of Scott Tracy in the classic children's adventure series, The Thunderbirds. Speaking of Thunderbirds, I'd like to thank Thunderbird Releasing and Edward Fletcher for allowing me to use clips from Alternative 3 in this video. Keep checking their website, thunderbirdreleasing.com, for news on Alternative 3's upcoming remastered release. And huge thanks to director Christopher Miles for all his help with this video and with the appropriately 3-part article I wrote for Horror News. You can find that article and a lot of other fun stuff on my website, williamburkeauthor.com. Please let me know if you have any ideas for other strangely brilliant videos, and thanks for watching.
I wish I was a spaceman, the fastest guy alive. I'd fly you around the universe in Fireball XL5. Way out in space together, conquerors of the sky. My heart would be a fireball, a fireball.
Mars.